Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Growing in Grace, how to launch a virtual discipleship quad. And, we're excited to be able to host this with you tonight. Once again, my name is John. I'm with the Christian Outreach Office here at Franciscan University, and with me is the lovely Christy Shearbaum. Christy, tell people who you are. Say a little bit about your life.
Well, I'm Christy Shearbaum. You can't see it, but I am very pregnant. I'm due in 29 days. Not that anyone here is counting, or actually everyone here is counting. It'll be my fourth baby girl. So we're ready to get that done and have the baby. And I live in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I've worked for the conference office for over 10 years, and I'm heading up the whole discipleship quad process. So it's nice to be with you tonight.
You worked for 10 years. Who was the brilliant person who thought it was a good idea to hire you, Christy?
It was you, John Beaulieu. You are the brilliant one.
Many years ago. It's been it's so good to be on to this webinar. It's especially gratifying for me, like this whole discipleship quad that we've launched, and that we're going to be talking about, especially in regards to how to do it online right now. This train has been driven by Christy in many hours and hours of research and commitment and follow through and integrity, and just maintaining this vision of being able to provide people tools to walk together and accompany one another as a disciple. And so we're very grateful here in the office for all Christy's hard work. And once again, just thank you, Christy, for just all that you've done to make this discipleship quad a reality for everybody. Before we get started, I just want to do a little check-in with everyone who is registered. We got a number of people who've already jumped on board with us, and I would really appreciate it. This would really help to kind of type in tonight your name, where you're dialing in from, and if you are currently leading a quad and are just on here tonight to learn how to help strengthen it as a digital experience, put 1. If you are on here tonight to learn and haven't launched a quad but are interested in learning about a quad, type your name, where you're from, and then a 2. So 1 if you're a current quad leader who's looking to transition it into a virtual quad, or somebody who's just looking to start a quad from scratch. And so we have an idea of who we're talking with tonight. That would be really good. So go ahead and type your answers in now. All right, Mary, good. Priscilla, welcome. Will, Julie, a lot of 2s on here. This is exciting. Good to see so many people. Father Terrence from Singapore. Seriously, wow. This is very impressive. We're glad to have you on board. So we got a couple more 2s. Joe from Illinois looking to start. Janelle from Portland looking to start one. First timer, that's my brother Chris. He is up in the UP of Michigan, enjoying a little spring weather, and glad you're on with us tonight, Chris. While people are typing their answers, it's being talked about by everybody, right? We're all in this together, and I love the fact that that's what our Pope has said, right? This is how we're going to get through the impact that this COVID-19 is going to have upon our church, our lives, our society, the finances of our society, all of it. How are we going to get through it? We're going to get through it together. And that's the whole vision behind a discipleship quad. I think one of the things that has happened, I think, maybe we can really look at this as the silver lining of an otherwise very dark cloud, is we've had our lives stripped of many idols right now. Our malls are empty, our stadiums are empty. We're not worshiping sports heroes right now. We're not going to theaters and worshiping movie stars. We're not going to buying things and going out and enjoying all the nice eating out that we used to do. Our lives have become a lot more simple. And in that, I think we've realized that maybe the things that we've been trying to fill our lives with have been kind of maybe masking a deeper need that each one of us has to be in relationship with other people, significant, intimate, authentic relationships with one another, where we're walking together as brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ. So, this might be a great moment, like a reboot, reshift, reset moment for the church collectively, but it's definitely a kind of a reboot, reset, recheck, kind of moment for each one of us individually. Right? What is God doing in your life? What has He been teaching you? And what are you going to do as in response to that, because there's going to be a day when this major wave of upheaval is going to kind of flatten out. But we got to make sure we don't go back. And I think a real way that we can do that is to start something now that will last much longer than the coronavirus and its impact. And that's what we're here to talk about, the Discipleship Quad. So with that being said, I'm just going to kind of turn it over to Christy. Like I said, this is her, in many ways, maybe her fifth baby, because she really helped bring this about. She's got, her pregnant with her fourth, right? And then this will be your fifth baby. So why don't you go ahead and just start sharing with us, because we're just excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal of this webinar is to share with you how to do virtual discipleship quads. And so Sharon, I know you just said that that's really what you're here to learn, and you're already in a quad. We didn't anticipate so many people on here saying that I didn't anticipate so many people on here saying that they hadn't started yet. So I'm going to just do a really quick, brief overview of why discipleship quads are unique, what makes them unique, and why I believe in them so much. And then we're going to go into some of the details of doing it virtually and what are some of the differences and all of that. But I do want to say, I'm going to do this very briefly because John and I did another webinar that you can find on our website at SteubenvilleConferences.com on the Discipleship Quad page at the very bottom. It says training videos, and then you'll see John and I's face just like this, and we'll be doing a webinar where we go into all of the details of a discipleship quad and how to start one, and just a lot more detail than what I'm going to give you right now. So if you're in that place where you want to start a new one and you want a little bit more than what we're giving you tonight, please go listen to that webinar, because it gives you lots of great information. And then you can always email me, which John's going to put up my email address, which is the one on the website. It's discipleship@franciscan.edu, and that comes directly to me. And I'm happy to set up a time to talk with you at any point. I do a lot of just phone consults where I talk people through all of their questions and help them launch a discipleship quad. So I'm happy to help with that. And so that's another option for you. So a couple of quick things. This discipleship quad process was born out of research. So I spent a year researching, and then our colleagues kind of overviewed the research and we mulled over it, and then we developed discipleship quads out of the research. The goal of the research was to find something that was a discipleship formation process that not only helped form you to become a better disciple, but also helped give you the tools on how to help form other disciples. So not only teaching you, it's a whole adage of like, don't just give a man fish, teach a man how to fish, right? So built into the process, we were looking for something that built into the process was not only going to form you as a disciple, but was going to teach you and everyone involved how to go forth and make other disciples, because that's the ultimate goal that Jesus wants of us, is us to be a disciple maker as well as to be a disciple of his. And we call that spiritual multiplication. So we're making disciples that know how to make other disciples and know how to make other disciples. We also wanted to find something that had been proven to work over a long period of time. And so we found that. We found it in a process of a pastor who wrote about this in a book called Discipleship Essentials. Right? His name is Greg Ogden. So he has two books. One's Discipleship Essentials and one's Transforming Discipleship. So I got confused for a second because I am in my 8th month of pregnancy. Discipleship Essentials is his curriculum. Transforming Discipleship is the book that talks about the process. So I would highly recommend Transforming Discipleship if you're interested in this a little bit more. He's been doing this for over 35 years. And he found a process that works. The short of it is, it's not one-on-one discipleship where I just meet with one other person and kind of help them become a disciple, which is kind of the Paul Timothy model of the scriptures. It's not that. It's not regular small group, typical size where it's anywhere from 7 to 10, maybe even 15 people. It's not that, because that's too big for intimacy. It's right in the middle. So it's 3 to 4 people, called a micro group. And we decided to call it a discipleship quad and suggest doing 4 people. So long story short, we researched a lot, found a lot of great people doing a lot of great things in the Catholic and Protestant world, but this was the only one that really met what we were looking for. And I have finished one cycle of doing a discipleship quad with 3 other women, and I've launched my second discipleship quad, and all 3 of those women in my first discipleship quad have also launched their own. So I can say that I'm a living witness that it works. It's happened. Everybody in my group replicated and have started another one. So there's 16 women in my parish now that are in discipleship quads because of that first one that I started, you know, a year and a half ago with 4 of us. So it's kind of cool to see the math and how it works out. I can just attest to this, and I'm going to really stress this point because it's a big point right now as we're all social distancing, is that a big component of discipleship quads is the fellowship community component. It is not a small part of it. It may not seem like it at the outset, like when you first look at the curriculum, you look at what you're doing, it's like, oh, that doesn't seem to be a focus. But when you have 4 people meeting weekly, sharing their hearts, sharing their struggles, sharing their triumphs, sharing how they want to grow, sharing how they have failed to grow, every week you're meeting and you're giving an update on your life, there is something that's going to happen in the midst of that relationship with those 3 other people. You're going to grow in intimacy, you're going to grow in accountability, Christian fellowship is going to happen in a real way. And I will say that has genuinely happened for me. I can say that those 3 women in my first quad are my best friends right now. We actually had a lot of conversation today via text about just everybody's having a hard time. And so this is the best time to start a discipleship quad if you've been considering it, because we all need that in a special way right now. I can't go hang out with my kids' parents anymore at the playground and do playground dates anymore because of social distancing. We are all in need of this community aspect. And I was listening to a webinar earlier this morning, and they were talking about this idea. And I loved what he said. He said, I mean, we've all heard this, but just to be reminded of it, that we're influenced by the people we spend the most time with. Your friends will determine the quality and direction of your life. And so if you really look at who am I spending the most time with, am I spending the time with people that I want to be like, that I want to end up having an impact on my life? Proverbs 13:20, it says, he who walks with the wise becomes wise. And we know, and then it goes on to say, if you don't walk with the wise, you're not going to become wise, and not so those exact words. But we're made for community, and we're made for this. And so I just want to highly, highly encourage anyone who is on the edge of thinking, I've been thinking about it. This is really a perfect time, even though it's going to be virtually, even though you're going to do it through a video like this. It works. I've been meeting with my new quad in a video format, and it works. It's ideal to do it face to face, in real person, and real, like, you know, physically present. That's ideal. But we'll get there. I do believe one day we're going to be able to be physically present again, Lord willing, in all of this. So I just want to highlight that that's a big, big part of what you get out of a discipleship quad. I'm going to say a couple more things, and then I want to just direct you to the other webinar for more information. A couple of other things that make it very unique is the upfront commitment of replication, meaning at the beginning of starting a discipleship quad, you share with them the commitment sheet, which this is all detailed in a document called an overview. It's called the overview on our website, and you can download it. And everything is for free. The curriculum, all of this documentation, phone calls with me, everything is free. And so in the overview document, it talks about the commitment sheet. And in the commitment sheet, we commit to 5 things. And it's just very upfront. It's very intentional. Like, hey, we're committing to these things. We're going to meet weekly. We're going to be on time. We're going to do the prep work, all of those basic things. But the 5th thing is that at the end of this year, so it's a year-long process, at the end of the year, I'm going to give serious consideration to starting another quad. It doesn't say I'm going to for sure do it. You don't have to sign in, you know, blood saying no, for sure I'm going to do this. It's just more so saying, hey, that's something that I'm going to give serious consideration to at the end of this. So it doesn't come as a surprise at the end. The other thing that's super intentional is that the facilitation, the person leading kind of the group each time, which is, you don't have to have a lot of leadership skills. It's just basic helping people keep flow in conversation and timekeeping. That changes throughout the time. So you rotate leadership, which we call it a facilitating. So you rotate facilitation. That's another thing that makes it super unique. So by the end of the year, everyone's had a chance to lead, and everyone knows how it goes. The other thing is the curriculum is super easy to follow. We wrote our own curriculum so that we could give it away to you for free, and it matches exactly what we do in a discipleship quad. And then another thing I'll say that makes it really unique is that we have what we call a self-assessment of the characteristics of what makes a disciple. So when we were looking at all the different processes out there for discipleship formation, one of the things we saw lacking was that there wasn't this driving of behavioral change. So I don't know if you're like me, but I've been in lots of little small groups throughout my life, and we'd sit and we talk about these great things, scripture, church teaching, all these wonderful things. But then I go home and I don't change my life. Like I still, have all the sins that I'm struggling with, and I'm not making changes in my behavior because I'm not committing to specific changes. I'm just talking about these concepts, but I am not actually practically implementing it into my life. And so one of the things we decided to do was we identified 7 characteristics of what makes a disciple a disciple. Things like daily prayer, sacramental life, community and fellowship, service. And then we ask you to do a self-assessment on how you're doing with each of those things and then how you want to grow. And you do that 4 different times throughout the whole process. And so this is driving behavioral change. So we're not just going here and meeting weekly and having tea and talking about our hearts. We're actually talking about our hearts and having tea and smiling and crying, but we're also saying, how am I going to really change? Like, how am I going to make a commitment to change in my prayer life? What am I going to do to make a difference? So again, I could talk about this for an hour because we have, and we've done a webinar on it for an hour. So again, I highly suggest if you have more details that you want to know how to start a quad, how to pray about who to invite into a quad, all of that is detailed in that other webinar. But also I'm happy to help. I'm happy to set up a call with you or answer any emails or anything like that. But that's like the 30,000 foot view of a discipleship quad and what's been great about it. And also in there, I give you my story of kind of how my discipleship quad started. And I worked the process exactly as it's written out, and just God has blessed it. And I've heard other stories like this of just people saying, like, I've never experienced anything like this, even though I've been in small groups before, because it's not a typical small group. It's something very unique. And the size has a big part of that. Being only 4 of you, it makes a huge difference in the dynamics of the group. So, John, that's my overview. Oh, I think you're muted.
Right.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I did a quad for a year last year. I'm starting. Was going to start my next new one now, but I think I might have to wait until we get some things worked out. Just with everything I've got going on in the evenings with other things right now. But I'm looking forward to getting back into it, and it is so beneficial. I want to emphasize, like, the way I got to know the other 3 men in my discipleship quad. The conversations, the depth of the conversations that we had, and it was, yes, as children of God, as men of God, but it was also as husbands, fathers, men who work and provide, the challenges that presents. We shared every part of our lives, and it was so wonderful to do that, because I think, we have a tendency in the church to say, those girls get together and they share their feelings, and that's all good for the girls. And yeah, guys, we struggle a lot harder with sharing our feelings, but when we do, and we can break through that kind of fear, beautiful things happen. So if you're, especially you want to speak to the guys on this call tonight, we need to step it up and not be afraid to be authentic and real with one another, because when we are that way, we strengthen one another tremendously. So that's it.
Awesome. We have one question about quads that I'm going to answer real quickly here, but we're going to take some questions again at the end. But just because it popped up here and it's specifically about discipleship quads, I'm going to answer this question real quick before we go into the video stuff. And it's Georgette asking, how important is it to have similar age groups in a quad? It's not that important, in the sense that my experience has been that I've had, a wide range. I mean, we all know when we become adults, the age range, it becomes fuzzy, right? It's not as much about your age as much as it is maybe the ages of your kids that kind of bond you. But even that, my quad had a lot of 3 of us women had kids that were a little bit younger. And then one of the women in my quad had kids that were in college and high school. And when I say younger, I mean, like, I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So she was, probably 15, 20 years older than us, but it still was great. She brought a lot of wisdom to the table, and there was a great experience by having her in the midst of the conversation. What I would encourage you and everyone else that's considering a quad is to make sure that you look at the overview and you really take serious the process of praying about who to invite. Every time the question comes up about, should I invite all married people, or should I invite all just single people if I'm single, or all of those questions about who to invite, I always say it goes back to prayer. Pray about who you're supposed to invite, Trust the process. We give you a very detailed process on how to do that. Writing down names that come to mind, every name that comes to mind, just write it down. And then pray with that list. It may be 30 people, who knows? Pray with that list for a week and ask God to highlight 3 people, meaning like place 3 people on your heart that like that name keeps coming up, or there's something about that person that you just keep thinking about. And go with where the Holy Spirit leads you on that. That might be a new process for some of you, because the idea of praying about something like this may be a little bit challenging for you, but I promise you God will bless that. And I ended up inviting 2 women that I did not know at all, really. I had met them through a mom's group, and I just really felt like their names were on my heart. And then the third woman I actually knew a little bit better, but not super well. And I had just moved to Atlanta, Georgia, like a few months before, so I didn't have a lot of friends here. And I cannot tell you how blessed it was. I mean, that first quad was such an amazing experience, and we bonded so much. And every single one of them said in one way or another, I had been asking God for something like this. Like when I pitched it and said, hey, do y'all want to do this, in an awkward way, I was like, hey, I don't know, y'all don't know me very well, but I was wondering if you would be interested in doing this thing with me. And they all just in one way or another said that they had wanted to do something like this, and they had been asking God to prepare to give an opportunity. So the biggest thing I would suggest is praying about it and going with that direction. The only thing that we highly suggest is keeping it all male and all female. So we keep gender specific, and that's actually something that we're following from Greg Ogden's process. But once again, we go into a ton of detail about this in that other webinar. So, all right, John, you want to talk about virtual stuff?
Sure. And here's something I want y'all to just to chew on, and because I think there's a lot of people struggling right now, and it's a common feeling. I think a lot of people have that somehow, but the church is shut down in many places. I haven't been to mass in weeks. I'm a daily communicant, so every time I'm online watching a mass and I can't receive, it's almost like pouring a little salt on an open wound right now, because I'm consoled by the fact that our priests are making this sacrifice, and there's power and grace that I receive because of that. My faith, in my head, that my faith, I understand that, but being separated from the Eucharist is like, it's hard right now. But there's a real way, I think, in other ways, God wants to bless us and to stretch us and to teach us something new. And it requires just maybe a little bit of surrender and a little bit of let go. I have found, and I did this 3-night parish mission this past week, that the technology and space between all of us on that webinar did not prevent the Spirit of God from moving in power in everyone that was on board. These online resources, these online experience is going to be powerful, if you cover it in prayer, because God isn't limited by time, space, or technology. He has the ability to draw hearts together that are thousands of miles apart, across the city, unable to see each other. Social distance is no big deal for God. He's got this handled. So trust that, if you enter into this, it's going to be beneficial. So, where do we want to start, Chris? You want to start with just kind of overview of some of the options out there for people?
Yeah, we can do that. You want to point out the handout and see if the people want to download it?
Yeah, so I uploaded on the side in your virtual discipleship, in your GoToWebinar control panel, there is a document little box. You click on that, you're going to see that I have loaded up a Word doc saying launching a virtual discipleship quad. If you want to go ahead and just double click that, it'll open up on your computer if you have Microsoft Word. If you don't have Microsoft Word and you're not in a place where you can open up the document, don't worry, we'll have this document uploaded and on our Discipleship Quad webpage. And so I've already in the chat box loaded up a few things there. One of them is the web address for all of our discipleship resources. So that's, www.steubenvilleconferences.com/discipleship quads. That's where you're going to be able to find the resources on launching a discipleship quad, including this document that's online here. But so there's a number of different options that are, and some are easier to use than others. But here's the thing, you don't have to be a computer whiz to make any of these work. You know, they're fairly straightforward. They're very user friendly, and that just means that it's even the kind of stuff that I was able to learn very quickly. And I don't adapt to new technology really fast. You know, it does take me a while now. You know, I mean, like all the kids out there would probably say, "Okay, boomer," you know, but that's just who I am, and that's what I'm dealing with. You know, the first one that we can talk about is Zoom. Zoom is a wonderful option because it's free. Most of the things that I'm going to be talking about are free. We don't want to put any kind of financial strain on anybody right now. And surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly enough, but wonderfully enough, all the companies that have created this technology are giving people extreme discounts and breaks because they know that virtual communication is the only way business and life is going to, you know, be done right now under our current circumstances. But Zoom, you can download the app. They have an app for your phone. You can use it on your computer. You know, and if you have an iPhone with the camera or an Android phone, it works with either. You can use the camera on your phone. You just download the software, and you would use your phone like you normally would. You can put it, you know, just hold it out in front of you. It loads up very easily. Now, what happens is, how does this work? Well, you know, if you're going to be the facilitator, then you will go to Zoom and you will set up a meeting, you know, and you can do that by creating your free account. Once you've created the meeting, they're going to say, here is your join link. And then you send that out to everyone else in the quad. Now, one of the challenges of Zoom is it has, for the free account, a 40-minute time limit on each meeting. However, you know, there's a way around it. You can schedule 2 unique meetings back to back, and that gives you 80 minutes to meet. Now, normally we would say, you know, we want you to meet for an hour and a half each week. And you're like, an hour and a half, that's so long for a meeting. It's not really, because here's what you do. You spend half an hour praying and just reconnecting and socializing. And then you spend the second hour, the last hour, talking through and about the resources that you spent the week praying through and preparing for that session. And let me tell you something, there was never a time in my first year in a quad where we got an hour into it and we're like, guys, this is kind of boring. Can we break off now? It was always, oh my gosh, we only got a minute. Let's wrap up in prayer. And everyone was like, oh man, we got to jump off already. And let me tell you, we got up we started our meeting at 6:30 in the morning, and the 4 of us would go to one of the teachers. One of the guys I was in the quad with is a professor at Franciscan. We would go to his little conference room for his team, and we would just meet there at 6:30 in the morning, and it was great. So you're not gonna have to worry about it, but you know, if you use Zoom, you just have to do 2 back-to-back meetings, and that'll give you about 80 minutes. And if you really want the full 190, then just do a third meeting and jump off after 10 minutes. So, and it's easy to schedule. Every one of these sites has complete tutorials that will walk you through step by step on how to do everything, and they all have online tech support. You can send an email, you can get into a chat box, you can ask your questions. The people are wonderful. Now, they're a little bit overwhelmed right now, as you can imagine, everyone trying to get up to speed with these technologies, but they're there. The second is, go ahead, Christy.
I was just going to say one quick thing about Zoom. Zoom is actually my preferred platform for video conferencing. And one reason is because not everybody has to have a user sign in.
Right.
So only one person has to set up the meeting, and then you send them the link, and everyone else can just click the link. They don't actually have to sign in and like become a user of Zoom and have a password and all of that. So it makes it very easy, especially if some people in your group are a little more hesitant towards the technology. You can be the one that figures it out and then just send them the link and test it with them, and then it's very easy because of that. I've been using Zoom for my quad, and it works out fine. We just had to do back-to-back meetings, like I said, where it gives you a little countdown at the top saying your time's almost up, and what we used it as is a bathroom break. We were just like, all right, everybody go to the bathroom, click back on the link in a few minutes when you're here, and I resent the link. You can email the link or you can text message the link. It's very easy to use because of that, and the platform is very nice. It's only 4 of you, but you can see all 4 faces equally on the screen. Now, John did mention it, you can use it as an app on your phone, but you can also use it just on the computer. If your computer has most computers do nowadays have cameras, and so it's very easy to use on a computer as well. So that's my preferred method, and it's just worked really well for us.
Yeah, through our office, we have 20, 20 remote conferences across the United States and Canada. And you can imagine we were supposed to be gathering face to face for a meeting this past week, but we used Zoom and had 20 people on a conference call where we could see each other, and it worked great. So I am a big fan of Zoom as well. It's ease of use, and like Christy said, you don't have to pay anything, you don't have to sign up for anything. One person kind of owns the account, and everyone else just clicks a link that's embedded in an email and sent to somebody, and all of a sudden it just brings you right there at the right time, and you're good to go. Similar to Zoom is Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts is the thing about Google is Google likes to own everything. So unless you have a Gmail Google account, you can't use the service. I know most people have a Gmail. I have a Gmail address only for the purpose of being able to use all of Gmail's online apps and such as like Google Hangout. But if you want to look at that, like once again, if you have a Google account, it's really easy to use, and Google gives you great tech support. They take good care of their customers, and you can and when you go to their website, you can use a ton of things. There's a lot of cool features in that, and it's easy to use. So, yeah. Now, the other thing that you can think about using, and you can do this through most Macintosh laptops, iPads, and phones, is FaceTime. Now, FaceTime is absolutely free. It's built in, and as long as you have Wi-Fi or even on cellular, you can connect. The challenge that I find with multiple people on FaceTime is the images kind of float on the screen in a weird way. Like they're not like when you get on like Zoom, it's 4 squares that form a rectangle, and everyone's right there, and it's very steady. Whereas the way Apple has it look, it kind of looks funny on the screen, and that might make it hard to concentrate on it. So I would say, from a ease of use and the freedom of having it, if everyone has an iPhone, to be able to do that is great, but it is a little more distracting than something like Zoom. I would put Google Hangout and Zoom ahead of trying to do FaceTime calls. Also, the problem is that it runs on network data, and with everybody doing it, there's a lot of times when your local data in your can just slow down, and then your network gets really choppy. Surprisingly enough, for the entire time that we were on the call the other day with the 20 of us, we did a 4-hour session, a nonstop 4-hour session. Not once did anyone's video or audio cut out when we were using Zoom. So once again, there's another personal recommendation. Another option is Skype. Skype is a Microsoft product, but they have support for Macintosh computers. There's an app that goes with Skype as well, and you usually have to download that to your computer to be able to use it. But the pros of Skype are it's good audio quality for sure, and it can be used internationally. So you actually use your phone number to log on, but that's what can be confusing, because number one, it takes a while for it to load up, especially if you're doing international stuff, and some people can be easily confused by how you log in because they don't know if they have to put in their email, their phone number, or what. Now, once again, once you get the hang of it, it's very easy, but there seems to be a little bit more of a learning curve with some of Skype's features. But once again, if you wanted to even do a discipleship quad where somebody's on another continent, Skype would be a great option for you to use as well, especially if somebody's over there in an area that only has the ability to connect through their phones. So, yeah, so there you go. And then the last one I haven't personally experienced, but it came highly recommended by other people that both Christy and I consulted with, and that's freeconferencecall.com. And they have, I want to say, several 100,000 businesses and different organizations use this across the United States. So it's got a high level of acceptance, a high level of use, and a high rating from those who use it as being a very smart, very easy to use, very reliable way to do conferencing. So those are the ones, like there's other ones that you can explore. And what we don't want you to do is to get bogged down choking on the technology, right? The technology, there's like, you go online, and if you Google online conferencing, you'll find dozens of options. There's big companies, small companies. I would say use one of the 5 that we've recommended here, but But if none of these do work for you, and I'm sure one of them will, you can go to this last link that you see on the bottom of the first page of the handout, which is just a voice over internet. That's what VOI means, voice over internet preview.org, which is just, they're the people that kind of do this, internet conversations, and they have all the different services there, and you can compare features and ease of use and read reviews, and so if you need more information. But I think if you were just to use Zoom, you'd be perfectly fine. And Chris, do you have any other thoughts on that you want to add?
No, I just want to reiterate, don't get bogged down in the technology. Reach out to me if you're having any trouble with it. I'm not an expert, but I know how to use Zoom. So I can get you started there for sure. So don't let this hold you back. Don't let fear of technology hold you back. Don't let figuring it out hold you back. Like, we'll figure it out. And my husband works in IT, so if I don't know it, I'll ask him. But we'll get you there. Don't let the video conferencing thing hold you back. John's going to talk about this when we go down into the next section about the tips on doing this, but we've talked mostly about video options. Obviously, another option is just doing an audio speakerphone group call where it's just voices, but we recommend video if at all possible. It's not that hard. I mean, probably it's high in demand right now, but they're not very expensive to get cameras if you don't have a webcam. They're not super expensive, so investing in a web camera if you don't have a device that has a camera, like a smartphone or a Mac or some sort of computer that has it, it'd be a good investment. It's always an option to do speakerphone, but videoing is so much more interactive. If you can see facial expressions, you can see moods, you can see, oh, you look like you didn't get good sleep last night, or like you can just see so much more. And also, it's held you accountable to make sure you're not multitasking. I mean, I have 3 little kids, and it's hard, but I want to give my quad my attention when I'm with them. I mean, not that we don't have little kids hanging on us at times when we're meeting. So I mean, that definitely happens, but there's something about the video experience that I would highly recommend, even if it's a little intimidating, for you to try it out, because it makes a big difference in your experience.
Great. One of the questions that Mary put up is, there any concerns with security? And there really is no issue here. All these services use pretty strong encryption, and you don't submit credit cards or anything for any of this. So that's not, there's no worry about your own personal information being leaked. I know there are people out there, bad actors, and they are active right now. It seems in times of crisis, you get the great people, good people become great, and bad people become just despicable. I mean, it just happens in every crisis. And right now, there are people, the cyber threats, they're always out there. But yeah, I think you need to be more careful now. But with this kind of technology, you're not submitting any kind of sensitive information, and it's encrypted in such a way that they should, they won't be able to get into your computer through being logged into a chat room or a video chat like Zoom. Okay, so you're safe. It's reliable stuff. So I wanted to share just for a couple of minutes. One of the things that's important in all this is that you create, like Christy said, an environment that's as engaging as possible. You want to maximize the experience because it's already hard enough that you're apart. To maximize, like Christy said, you want to go with the video. Why? Because we all know this. 85% of communication is nonverbal. So the expression on my face, what I'm doing with my hands, if I'm, just my posture, can communicate to you so much more than just my words can, right? So you need that in order to really get through. For me, I absolutely hate text messaging because it's nothing but words, and you try to type as few words as possible, because I hate typing on my phone. And then I'm sending these messages that are being totally misunderstood, or it's just hard. So, but this is great. For me in this office, what I did is I bought an upgraded camera that's better than the one that was built into my Mac. It's 1080p. You can see the quality coming through. And the thing is, this camera that I got was only I think $50, I think, and that's not cheap. But if you're looking at something that can give you some great quality, and then I bought this little microphone setup here, so that people could clearly hear me But I'm doing a lot of webinars these days. I'm doing a lot of online stuff. And so I just want to make it the best experience for everybody involved. But
But
when you,
I'm just simply, I'm on a
yeah,
Mac,
and she
MacBook
looks fine.
Air, and
Yep.
I have no mic. I mean, using audio. I'm not even using a headset. Like, you can do it super simple. I've done Zoom on my phone, on my iPhone, and
Yep.
I have no additional stuff, and it works fine. So as long as if you feel like you can hear me and see me well, then you know that the basics also work fine.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So you want to make sure that you set yourself up in a well-lit place where the lighting that you're using is in front of you. Because when you're backlit, you get shadows on your face and people can't see your face. They can't tell you're smiling or frowning. You want to make sure that people can see your expressions. You want to position yourself kind of like we're in between where Christy and I are. You're like you're about shoulder width, so people you're close enough that people can see your face, right? You don't want it to be like, hey everybody, how's it going? Good to see you today. I'm way over. You really want to be, head and shoulders kind of that kind of framing of yourself when you video chat. And it's important, even if you can use your phone. If you have to use your phone to video chat, you can get one of these. You can pick it up. You even get curbside delivery at Walmart. It's a little thing that I can take with my. You just pull it up like this, and it holds your phone in place. But it says, because it's really important when you do this, to keep your camera still and level, because there's nothing worse than like if I'm doing this and I'm looking like this the entire time. Hey everybody, how's it going? You just kind of like start to get a crank in your neck and you're like, okay. So keep your phone, your computer or your phone steady and level. Frame it about like this. Good lighting from the front. Make sure you get to the quietest place in your house right now, and that might not be easy for some of us. Christy's got 3 little girls running around the house. I know for me, I've got, I don't know what's worse. I got, 3 of my grown children running around my house right now, and I don't think it's the loudest it's been in a long time. And then I've got my 11-year-old running around. But find a quiet place where you can just kind of not be distracted, because and just tell your kids like this is important to mommy's sanity, this is or daddy's sanity. This is what's going to keep me from killing you. So let me have this hour and a half with my people to pray and share about my faith, and then then you can we'll go out and have fun, and just make sure you're in a quiet place.
Can I add something quickly to that, John?
Absolutely, absolutely.
In our other webinar, we talked a lot, and I especially talked a lot about how this is doable if you're a stay-at-home mom or a part-time working mom like myself, to do during the day when you're the sole taker care of your kids, like your kids are there. Again, I have a 1, 3, and a 5-year-old, and we do it with our kids present. I will say it is more difficult to do it with my kids present on video. When we're physically there, they're used to physically having people around, and they're not like that. It's just they kind of go off and they play with the other kids, or they go in the toy room, or I'll put on a show for them, and they're not near as distracting as when I'm on a video call. When I'm on a video call, I almost can't do it with them in the room. And that is a downside for me, because we had to change our quad meeting. We were doing it during the day, and all of us have little kids in my quad, except for one of the women, and she has older kids. And so we had to switch our time to where we could do it at a time when our husbands could watch the kids, because well, maybe it's also my kids, I mean, they're just attracted to screens, like they just can't. We've tried a couple of times to do it, and my kids just cannot handle it. So that's just a little side note, that although I really believe you can do a discipleship quad with kids present, and especially little kids, and like dealing with the chaos of it, but a video is much more difficult. The other thing I want to mention is you don't have to go out and buy one of those things that John has, although those are really cool. You can also just stack up a bunch of books. And I have a cup that I put, I'm obviously not very high techy, like I'll prop my phone like up with my cup, like this, my little iPhone. And so you can do it like that too. The point is, you don't want to hold your phone for an hour and a half up like this, like up. You don't want to hold it. You want to prop it somewhere. I have a kitchen counter or a kitchen cabinet that I can prop my phone into, and I can stand there if I'm doing just like a quick video call. But you don't have to get those things, but those things are really great to have, if you want to go out and buy those. But you can also just prop it up with some books or something like that, or a ledge on a shelf or something like that too.
Yep. Perfect, thank you. And then whatever you're using, whether you're using your phone or your computer, here's my sincere advice. Turn off all your notifications, because the last thing that you want in the middle of your quad when somebody's sharing their heart and soul in front of you is for something to pop up on your screen and go, oh my gosh. And they're like, were you even listening to me? Yeah, so turn off your notifications on your phone and do the same on your laptop. Don't have anything else open. Don't have something over on the side. Don't have other programs running. Don't, just shut everything off, because you really want to make yourself 100% as present as possible to the people that you're walking with, because there's nothing worse than, like I said, sharing something very personal and then finding out that people were not really tuned into anything you were saying. So that's just, and sometimes it happens and you didn't account for it. You didn't count on it, it just happened. But if you turn off those notifications, you're not going to have that problem. All right. So, want to use the video, use it well, but here's the thing. Sometimes it fails. Sometimes somebody's just in a situation where their internet's buggy, and, we have these things at different times during our day where the internet just kind of freezes up and everyone's like, oh, this is so frustrating. You always want to have that dial-in option. And here's the beautiful thing about, Zoom and other services. They all come with this dial-in option. So if I'm in a place where I can't join or my video is not working and all I have is my phone, they give you that 10-digit number and then an access code, and that takes your voice and puts it into the internet, so you're talking with the people in the room, not being seen, but your voice, you're there, you can hear them just fine. So there's just, make sure you're using a service that has that dial-in option, and Zoom is one of those that definitely has that. Now it's challenging, the reason I had myself muted when Christy was speaking and I started speaking and had to take myself off mute, is because when you are not speaking, some phones are very sensitive, some computer microphones are very sensitive, and it picks up a lot of background noise very easily. So if you're not talking, it's easy to mute. Also, there's a tendency with some of these services sometimes for feedback to come into there through if you're listening with your microphone on, and it doesn't happen that often, but when it does, it's very annoying. But my recommendation is I have this little button that mutes my microphone, and now I'm back. So if I were to be on this thing, a quad talking, when I get done talking, I would just mute myself. And how do you then facilitate a conversation? Well, it's kind of like popcorn. Like you can either just say, all right, we just go around, like I'm taking everyone's share, and then I can say, okay, Christy, I'm popping to you, and then.
You're muted. I think you're still muted.
Oh, I thought I broke the button. There, I'm back. You can use like this popcorn method where you just pass it around to one another, just pop it around. Or, you can just do like when somebody has something to say, you just, go like that. And everyone, that means I'm ready to talk. And then if I see Christy's hand up, I go, okay, Christy, go. And then she can unmute herself and start talking. And you'll get used to it very quickly.
Yeah,
But
I'll also add that this is true. This is a way you can do it. When we first transitioned to doing it on a video a few weeks ago, it actually was not hard to do the dynamic of conversation without even doing like a, I mean, I'm leading it right now, and I think when we did our updates, that first 30 minutes, I think I went ahead and said, I'll start. And then I said, okay, now Joni, can you go? Just because, because of the dynamics of not being in person, I just kind of called on people, but everybody was going to give their update anyway. And then when we started answering the questions, like we didn't have a lot of an issue. Like it actually flowed pretty well in regards to, I know it says here, and you can talk over people, but for the most part, like we were all able to, add in comments. The only thing we dealt with a little bit was like sometimes if one person's talking and someone else tries to talk, you don't catch the beginning of what they say, and so we just had to repeat ourselves a couple of times. But for the most part, that conversational flow, like it doesn't get too stifled, but you do have to be aware that it may take a little bit more intentionality of, okay, why don't you answer this question first, or some of those basics of facilitating. So.
And it won't be hard for you as a quad to figure out what your online etiquette and process is going to be. And like Christy said, like I guess maybe that popcorn thing is when I've been on a call with 15 to 20 other people, that's where it
Right.
really comes in handy. Whereas with a group of 4, you're probably less likely to fall into these. But if you are having issues with talking, because like there's some systems, and this happened on our Zoom account, where if 2 people started talking, it was almost like nobody was talking because it was just garbled. So you have to be very careful. But like I said, with simple etiquette or simple process, with 4 people, it won't be that bad. And that's really why I think the quad works. Is when you think about conversations over a meal, when 2 couples go out and you have 4 people sitting around a 4-sided table, there's usually just one beautiful conversation happening. When you have 6 or 8, there's usually 2 or 3 conversations, and so that's when it can get tricky. But with just 4 people, I think you're right, Chrissy. I think that's going to be minimalized just to start with. So, but if you have to come up with something, all right. So the question is like, okay, starting this quad online, what do we do when we're no longer isolated? Well, obviously, the face-to-face is ideal. So we would say, in your discernment, though, right now we're in unique circumstances, and the Lord may be asking you to do something unique. It would be great to have the idea of eventually this would transition into a face-to-face quad that we would then begin to meet together on a regular basis. But if God has just put it on your heart that you need to invite somebody, that even after the COVID-19 crisis has passed and we're able to gather again, if God has asked you to invite somebody that will still need to kind of come in through a virtual experience, then I would just say go for it. There's something, and here's the reason why. No one can see the future, but I hear it being said, like we might have different times of social isolation because of COVID-19, even after we get the first wave of, hey, it's safe to get back together. Like it flares up, and like it starts ravaging. If there's another wave like this, they said we got to flatten the curve. If there's another curve building, they might put in some more restrictions for us. So it's not going to be a bad idea. I don't think we want to live in fear. So I would say do what you think the Lord is asking you to do. Once again, this has got to be spirit-led, because if it's just us thinking, oh, I've got to pick 3 people to hang out with, then it's just going to become more of a social thing or a comfortable thing. And we want it to be a spirit-led thing and really blessed by God and rooted in his leadership in it. So just pray and follow where the Spirit leads you. Here's some important things. Make sure once you decide, once you decide what technology you're going to use, as the facilitator, make sure you've directed everyone that you've invited to the website and they download and test the software before you get there. Just familiarize. Even if it means like, hey, I'm going to set up a meeting for just you and me to test it, to make sure, and I'll walk you through it so that when you first get together as a group, no, you don't lose the first 15 minutes fumbling like, how do I unmute myself, or how do I do this? So it'd be good as the facilitator to have a one-on-one before that first time you all get together, to make sure they've got the software downloaded, that it's tested, that they know how to use in their camera and microphone, because every computer is a little different. And sometimes you just kind of like, okay, where's the button to do this? Or why is my camera not working? And then you have to go into the settings and change one setting to give Zoom permission to use your camera for some reason. You want to have the time to do that with the person, and you don't want to do that in your first quad. You want to just be able to jump in with prayer and start the process, okay? So make sure you just have everyone download it prior to the first one and test it out. And back to the, like the quad basics, also, you got to make sure that they have all the resources, access to all the resources. And this, some people might be in a place right now where they can't download and print something, and they can't get to a place where they can have somebody print something for them. All right. So they might be isolated and have no access to, how do I print that? And some people might be able to open it up on their computer and at least, read it and then write it down into a journal or something. That's an option. If, maybe you can, maybe if you have the ability to print it off, you can print them off a copy and mail it, although that's a lot of paper to print off. But it is an investment. Like I think it really, there's a real benefit for you to be able to write down your answers and be able to review that stuff, especially when you do the quarterly review of your growth, to see, this is how I was answering things, and this is kind of where I was this week, and I remember this week, and oh, I remember I wrote down that. it's good to have a journal. It's good to have a record of what God is doing in your life to review and just see the progress you're making. That's really where it is, because sometimes we feel like we're not growing, and then we look back at what we've written in our prayer. We're like, hey, I'm growing. I'm actually have a deeper faith. And then
And
go ahead.
what John's referring to is the curriculum. So what you're going to follow for doing a discipleship quad, the lessons each week. It's called the guidebook, and it comes in 4 different parts. So there's part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. All of them are available to download, and they're all 100+ pages each. So although it's free to download, you do have to print it yourself, or you can just use it electronically, like John mentioned. I do know people that do. They just, have the PDF and they read it off the computer and they answer the questions. Some people like to have the hard copy printed, which is fine and doable, but it is a lot of pages. You can also print each week. So you could just, print the PDF pages, page 10 to 15 for that week or whatever it is. So that's another option, is to print as you go. And it gives you an outline in there of the actual quad meeting time and then the prep work, which is just reading and answering some questions. So that's what he's referring to. But also the other documents you want to read on there is under what we call the starter kit. But the overview document is the most important document of the starter kit. So you'll see all of that on our website, which John linked to at the bottom under the chat function.
Yeah. So, and make sure. And here's the other thing that I want to say is, like, we're not trying to create utilitarian relationships. Like, we don't want you to reach out to 3 people with the singular goal of, I've got to create a disciple. Your first call as a follower of Christ is to love well. To love others as Christ has loved you. So you want to make sure that in this process, especially during this time of social isolation, that your contact as facilitator with the people in your quad is not limited to just when you get together each week. You're going to want to use other technologies to check in, do some one-on-ones, just check in on people, because this is a rough time. I know a lot of fragile people, and even myself, I'm feeling a little fragile right now. The real possibility is, and the Franciscan University is not immune to this. And if we don't have conferences, there's going to be some tough decisions that are going to have to be made, because without revenue, there's no payroll. And it's not because they want to do anything like fire people, but that's just the way it's going to be. They won't have the money to pay people, and then there's going to be some very tough decisions that the university is going to have to make. And the way they keep talking of that the curve is flattening, but it's not flattened out. There's a real possibility we could lose some of this stuff. Now, we're not betting on that. We're moving full steam ahead, like God is going to do something miraculous. But we also, you prepare for the, you plan for the best and prepare for the worst. But in the midst of it has been my heart, and just, this is just hard for me to be in this place of unknowing. And I have really relied on my brothers in Christ to sustain me, because I know a lot of people who are a lot worse off than I am right now. And, so that, in the sense that I don't feel like I'm the biggest person who's hurting, but just to be able to get together with other guys right now and share and walk with one another is such a tremendous grace for me personally. And I know that I'm not the only one. So, make sure that as you do this process, love well, care for people, and let that lead this other process. Because when people know how much you care, they're going to want to follow you. They're going to want to be engaged with where you're wanting to lead them. If they don't know you care, there might not be the kind of flow that you want. And Christy will say this. She's made friends. She's also created disciples who are out now creating other disciples, but she's made friends because she loved well. So that's really, I think, important, that don't limit your contact to just the quad experience. And that's everything I've got to say, Christy.
Well, great. We have 1 minute for questions. If anybody has a question, you can type it into that question box, but also you can always email me. So John put it in the chat function at the very top of the chat bar is our email, but it's also on the website. So it's discipleship@franciscan.edu. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or I can set up a phone call with you. There was a question about couples meeting, and the quick answer is we don't encourage that. We feel like males disciple males best and females disciple females best. We get into that question quite a bit on our other webinar, so I'd encourage you to check that out for that question, but just to be aware of that. And then, John, can you look at that Zoom question?
It says if sound is fading in and out, try going to settings, audio, and unchecking the box. It automatically changes the level of the microphone. So, there is a lot that, like, and this is really true. Like when we do webinars with people who do music with, like sometimes if you hit the guitar and it hits it really loud, then all of a sudden it will automatically kind of throttle your microphone to lower the volume right away. And you can fix that by, checking the box she says in settings about the like flattening the level of your microphone. If you do, and then it will not cut out as much.
Mm-hmm. And then somebody asked about anonymity. One of the things, I don't remember exactly where it is, somewhere in the overview or somewhere in the beginning of the stuff, we talk about just small group dynamics of, what's shared here stays here kind of thing. But as a facilitator, you can reiterate that as the start of the quad, that any personal information that's shared should stay in the quad unless permission's given to share outside the quad, right? So you shared that in case someone shares something very private or something like that, and that's just a basic small group guideline concept. And there is something in the commitment sheet that talks about respecting each other. So yes, that's addressed, but as a facilitator, I would address it again. It's best just to say all that stuff at the front end of the meeting. Just saying, we want to respect everybody's privacy and make this a safe place for everybody to share. And so, because there are some really intimate things shared. And that'll be another reason why we would suggest women be with women and men be with men. I will say, all of the women in my group were all married, and we spend a lot of time talking about our marriages and our spouses and our situations that we're in and the ways we would need prayer and how we want to grow. And those dynamics and those conversations would not happen if our spouses were actually present there in that same way, because we're not sharing something that our husbands would not be okay with us sharing, but we're more so saying, like, we need help and advice on this that's hard to share when somebody's actually there that you're struggling with, right? So that's also good.
No, I would add to that, like, for me, my wife makes me want to be a better man, but my wife can't teach me how to be a better man. Only another guy can teach me how to be a better man. So it's important for guys to be with guys for that purpose. And because my struggles, they can relate to in a way that, I don't even know if I'd be able to talk about them if there was a woman in the room, but it's all good. Like, I think I know people are kind of like, oh, but I really like, yeah, there are times when the couple thing works, but there's just a time when it needs to be guys and girls together. So.
Well, once again, we're here for you. Again, I'm a free resource to you. Please reach out to me. I work part-time, but I set up phone calls for people and to talk through some of these things. So as you dive into the material and you want to start a quad, the biggest thing I would say is start. Just get going. The biggest thing I hear people say is, I want to start one, I just haven't done it yet. And I end up being more of a cheerleader than anything else. And I'm like, I'll check back in with you in 2 weeks, So if you need that accountability, I'm here for you for that. I put it in my calendar. I'm like, email this person on this date and check in and see how they're doing. So I can do that for you as well. But the biggest thing is just start the process, start praying about who to invite and run with it. And if somebody says no at first, it's okay. Just go on to the next person on your list. It happens, and in the end, God's going to place who he wants together. So keep that in mind as well. And know that you're in our prayers, and yes, we are here for you. So please reach out to us.
Great. And before we go, I just want to say that next week, there's a couple of webinars coming up. The first is Tuesday night. Then I think we have another one coming up Thursday night. If you haven't had a chance to go to the Upper Room, which is a page we've created on our website that have a lot of resources, we have a link to a daily mass that our friars are saying in the friary here on campus. It's a beautiful mass. It's well done. I want to invite you to check that out. It's at 12 noon every day. And then, I've had a lot of requests for this and it's been on my heart. So starting next week, and you're going to get an email, you're going to see it on the Upper Room. So check it out. It'll probably start, the information is going to go live tomorrow. Next week, we're starting a novena to Our Lady Undoer of Knots. And I asked the question to a number of people, do you want to do it in the morning or the evening? And we got split 50-50 down the middle. So I'm going to do one at 8 o'clock in the morning every day. And it's going to be live streamed through just a Facebook Live event where people just go to my Facebook page, and that's where I'll be. And then so you don't have to log in, you don't have to register. You just click on the link that's on the upper room. It'll take you right there. And then I'm going to do another one in the evening, probably 6 o'clock in the evening every night. And we're just going to do it for 9 days. My goal is to get 1,000 people praying this for everyone who's involved with conferences, for the future Franciscan, but more broadly for everyone who's struggling. I mean, like 6 million people lost their jobs this week. I mean, like this is tremendously painful for a lot of people. We got to be in this together and lifting one another up. So look for that information on both the upper room and in your email. And I'm so excited that you were able to join us tonight. May God bless you abundantly. And if you, like you said, if you have questions, Christy will help you out. She's anything you need. God bless you all.